The International Monetary Fund has approved the third review of Sri Lanka's bailout. The global lender has provided an additional $333 million in funding to the South Asian nation. It suffered the worst economic crisis in its history in just the past 2 years. Well, despite signs of emerging recovery, the IMF is warning Sri Lanka's economy remains vulnerable. Let's speak to Minelle Fernandez. She joins us from Colombo. So how vital is this IMF review to Sri Lanka at this point?
So the money that it will unlock now that there is a staff-level agreement, obviously one final step with the board of the IMF having to sort of rubber stamp and sign off on that disbursement, $333 million US. And that's, from what we're hearing, pretty much almost a given. There are certain things like the government sort of vote on account, its interim budget has to make sure it ticks the right boxes, but more or less agreement reached on them being given that tranche of money. Now, the Sri Lankan economy has stabilized from those dark days of 2022 without money for food, fuel, medicine, for energy and things like that. But keeping things on an even keel, keeping things stable in order to shore up reserves, in order to make sure there is a stable supply of the basic necessities, all of those things will be facilitated by this kind of cash infusion that the Sri Lankan government gets. And that was why it was good news when the IMF mission that has been in Sri Lanka from the 17th of November, they concluded their visit. They just spoke to the media a short while ago with this briefing, and they said that they have agreed in principle that they think that it's basically the way forward and to start putting things in place and continue the recovery mode.
Okay, so you already mentioned there that the economy has started recovering. How far off are the targets set by the president?
So in terms of the turnaround, or at least turning the corner, we are not out of the woods yet. The IMF alluded to that fact. But if you look at things like inflation, very much under check, something like 0.7%. The economy has started registering growth. We've had multiple quarters achieving growth, and that is a major factor given how far in the doldrums the Sri Lankan economy had fallen. So these are reasons that the IMF says it is suitably impressed with the progress made. They say they take comfort in the fact that the government of Anura Dissanayake has said it will persevere with the reforms as far as the government is willing to keep within what he described as the guardrails of the IMF program. So they did talk about welcoming the increase in the amount of sort of cash transfers to vulnerable and things like that. But in general, they seem to be quite happy with the pace that the government is keeping. They did warn about certain things like not looking at too many tax sort of concessions and things like that, keeping revenue on track. But in general, that's the way the IMF sees it, fairly positive.
All right, thanks so much. Minelle Fernandez in Colombo.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.